Listen, there's nothing better than having grandchildren and still being young and being able to keep up with our kids. And to me, creating amazing life experiences with the people that you love and care about most is what life is about.
There's been so many situations where a young girl or, a waitress or, someone who's just married will come up to me and be like, oh, you really want to have a family, but we're not there yet financially, this or that or whatever. But the one thing that I would say is you will never, ever, ever look at your child and be like, oh, I wish I didn't have you.
I believe that the media and the forces that are behind the media are forcing what I would call a squeeze. They're trying to create enough fear out there that the smaller wallet holders give up their cryptocurrency. They sell their Bitcoin. Something interesting happened this week.
How are you feeling like crypto is doing since the war and all of that?
I support President Trump. I support our troops. And like I said, I pray for any one of those soldiers and heroes that are out there that are putting themselves in harm's way. And I always will. Welcome back to another podcast with Travis and Summer Flaherty. Today, we're going to be talking about the craziness that's going on in the world. We might get into some family dynamics. We've got children that are married. We've got 4 grandchildren with another one on the way. We've got one that just went off to school in New York, which is a whole nother dynamic. And we're going to talk about the crypto volatility that's going on in the world right now. It's a really interesting time. A lot of FUD out there, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so where should we start today, honey? What do you think?
Well, the first thing that's on my mind is we have a new grandbaby.
We do have a new grandbaby. I have to say, do you feel like a grandma?
No. I've been actually having moments where I think to myself, oh my gosh, is this how my mom felt? Because she was a little bit even younger than me when she first had her first grandbaby. And she brought up the other day that I'm beating her. I'm like, how am I beating you? She's like, well, you're going to end up having 5 grandkids sooner than I did. But I think that's funny. But yeah, I don't feel like a grandma. Like, I'm so glad that we have the energy that we do. And it's so much fun. Everybody says it's so much fun. Everybody says it's way better than your own. And you know what? I don't know if it's better, but it's definitely really, really fun.
We started young. So we had 3 children. We got married. We had 3 babies within the next 3 years. So we literally had 3 children that were in diapers at the same time. And I got to tell you, it was a crazy time in our life. We were just talking about it while we were driving here, how there were a lot of sleepless nights. And do you remember those times where I literally would go try to sleep in the closet to get away?
I think you actually slept in the bathtub one time. I know, it's just funny to hear Savannah talk about that because I felt like she literally, it's just funny to see and fun to see the cycle and them going through what we went through when we had kids so close.
Our daughter, who just had a baby, called us and she said, oh my gosh, I was up all night last night. This baby was crying and this baby was crying. And I was just kind of smiling inside. I was like, we've been there. We know what it feels like. But to your point, so we don't go by grandma and grandpa. Like, I'm not a grandpa. Like, so, my grandpa was this little guy. He had white hair. He actually smoked a pipe. Remember the pipes back in the day? And to me, when I think of a grandpa, that's what I think of. Yeah. And so we go by Gigi.
Yes.
And Papa. And Summer has the G-wagon, as a matter of fact.
I do.
So she has a G-wagon. And so on her license plate, she's got Gigi, G-wagon, which is something that, that's what we roll by. So it's really fun. And yet we still have a 9-year-old at home.
Yeah.
So he's an uncle, by the way.
He's so proud of it, too. He's the best.
4 times over with another one on the way. You think about big families and the dynamics of a big family. And, with 6 kids, let's say, the average is 3 to 4 kids each. And I think some might go higher, some might go lower. So let's say that's the average. That's like 24 grandchildren. Like, you think about that, 24 grandkids. Like, what do you do at Christmas with 24 grandkids? So we still feel young, but
it's fun.
I listen. There's nothing better than having grandchildren and still being young and being able to keep up with our kids. And we were also just talking about this. I have a call that I do twice a week, and it's called the Breakfast Club, and it's for our crypto community. And we have quite a few people that come on, and we always open up that call with gratitude. I believe that gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. And so we spend the first 5 to 10 minutes. I invite anybody that's on the call to take 60 seconds or less and just say, hey, what are you most grateful for? And usually I do a lot of listening, but yesterday I wanted to share. And the reason why, and it's such a simple thing, but our son Chandler, who is the oldest, he called me in the morning and he said, Dad, are you working out this morning? And I said, yeah, I'm going to work out. And he says, I was thinking if it's okay with you, and he was really sweet about it, but he says, if it's okay with you, I was thinking maybe I could come over and work out with you. And, it's just it's a simple thing and it's a little thing, but it made my heart smile that my son wants to come and work out with me. And then that led me to think about how, like, our kids, if you think about it, they're like our best friends.
They are. They are. I mean, like, our weekends were like, hey, who's coming over to play cards or hang out in the jacuzzi and watch movies? It's always our kids and their spouses, actually.
I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the relationships we have with our children. But it also led me to think about how some of the family members that we have, they don't have the same dynamics. Either they don't have grandchildren or they don't have a lot of kids. And so we find ourselves always busy. Like, you're either watching one grandchild or helping out with another one, or they're always coming over. I mean, I would say 4 or 5 nights a week, we have somebody at our house that we're cooking dinner for. Yeah. And we love that. To me, Sunday dinners were always a big deal growing up. My mom was always in the kitchen. That's how I remember her. And she was this amazing cook. And she taught me how to cook. And so Sunday dinners, our family knows that there's a standing invitation, always. Yes. And it can be a little bit chaotic, especially for people that are not used to having that many kids come around.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so funny. You can tell people will come over and we'll have all our family over and maybe we'll have one other friend come over. And it's funny to see them observe our family. And I actually think a lot of people like to hang out at our house because of that, because it feels like there's energy. There's like a really happy, fun energy around, and there's always something going on. So it's fun to be at my dad likes to say it's fun to be a Flaherty. That's his saying, because it really is. We have a lot of fun together.
We started hashtagging Flaherty Fun at one point because all of these amazing trips that we take, right? Yeah. To me, creating amazing life experiences with the people that you love and care about most is what life is about. And so that's hashtag Flaherty Fun. But I also know that, and my brother has said this in the past, gosh, I'm not used to the noise. Like, there's a lot of noise. And to me, when it happens to be a Sunday where the kids are maybe going on over to their in-laws and we still have the 2 boys at home, but it's so quiet.
Yeah, it is quiet. I'm like, oh, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy quiet, but it kind of feels sad. I feel quietness can feel kind of sad. I mean, I like the fun. I like the fun energy, the chaos. It's happiness.
Well, sometimes when we go to dinner with just the boys, it feels like I asked for a table of 4, and that feels like unusual to me. It feels small to me.
I'm always recounting. I'm like, wait, is it 4? Oh yeah, I guess there's only 4.
Yeah, we're always trying to get tables of 10 or 12, and it's not easy to do. But we're just used to that and that dynamic. And I love that. I love having a big family, but sometimes it can lead to challenges because people that don't have big families don't understand that we're always entertaining and we're always tied up with our kids, our grandchildren now, and, other friends and other family members that maybe don't have that same dynamic. Mm-hmm. They don't understand.
No, I honestly think sometimes a couple of them think it's weird.
Yeah, they're like.
But I think it's because it's like you don't know what you don't know, you know? You don't know what you don't know. They just don't know. They don't understand because they don't have the ability to have those kind of relationships. I was going to say I feel sad for them, actually.
Well, you don't know what you don't know. And but I feel like they'll call and be like, hey, do you want to go here in an hour? And I'm like, who are you people? Like, that doesn't work for us. Like, we have, this football game, or we've got this grandchild that we're watching right now, or we've got these 8 people coming over for dinner. And I know that sometimes they probably feel sad because they think, oh, you guys just aren't around as much, or you're not as, I don't see you as often. But I don't think that people that maybe don't have as big of families and as many children now and grandchildren realize, everybody's busy, don't get me wrong, but sure, the dynamics are just different. Mm-hmm. And so we've experienced some of that, but it's fun having a big family. And then of course, Tuscany, our youngest daughter was just recently left the house and she went to New York City. And that was not easy, but I'm super proud of her. She has worked really, really hard, and she got into one of the top fashion schools in the country. And we just got a call from her this week. How's she doing?
She is doing awesome. First of all, I really do think she is in her element. I think it just fits her. New York City. I was worried for, I tease my kids and I say I'm a farm girl because I grew up in Gilbert. To them, Gilbert does not seem like a farm town. But back when I grew up, it was. Like my neighbors had cows, I had chickens and horses. But anyways, it's such a contrast from growing up in Gilbert to be able to go to New York. So I've had my reservations about that, but it just fits her. She's really come alive, and her talent has really flourished. Her teachers, every single one of them loves her, of course, but it's because she's so enthusiastic about her work. She has the top 3 grades. She's either the number 1, 2, or 3 in all of her classes. So I'm really excited for her, and I'm happy. And I think that just goes to show that when you're in your element and doing what you love, it doesn't seem like it might be hard. Obviously, work is going to be hard, and even the things that you love to do can have their hard challenges. She's had a lot of projects, and it's been really stressful because a lot of them are art driven or physical things that she has to create from a memory or something. So she has to dig deep and then also just create a piece for all of her classes every single week. So it's been challenging for her, but I think that's what makes her love it so much, is that it's challenging her in the ways that she needs to be challenged and that she loves. And so it's forcing her to grow. And I don't know, I'm just really proud of her.
She's in her element for sure.
Well, actually, I find it very interesting that when we have a lot of friends that have a lot of kids in their personal families. Like one of our friends grew up with 10 siblings. Can you imagine? That's crazy. I just had one other sibling. Travis only had one other sibling. And I felt like it was kind of lonely when I had neighbors that were always hanging out with their friends, kind of like what we've created with our family. I felt like they didn't need to have best friends. They had their sisters or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I kind of felt like the outsider. But they didn't mean to make me feel like that. It's just that their best friends were their sisters and cousins because they had such a big family. And I think at some root level, I really wanted to create that for myself. And I think that's what you maybe found too. You'll have to tell me about your experience. But I feel like our kids, I always wondered, because a lot of those kids in those families grew up and they only wanted like 2 or 3 kids. So I thought it would be interesting. I wonder what our kids are going to want to do when they grow up. Are they going to want to because they grew up in a big family, are they going to only want like 1 or 2 kids? But actually they love it. When I had Legend, my oldest was 17, and it was like, okay, we're really doing this. God has one more for us. But after I had him, all of our teenagers were like, Mom, can you please just have one more? Come on, you can do it. I'm like, I think I'm at my limit. I'm at my tipping point. I think 6 is good. But now fast forward, we have 3 older kids that are married, and the one daughter wants 4. The other 2 want 5 or 6, and their spouses want it too. So it'll be interesting to see. Right now we have slated, potentially 5, 10, maybe 12, just between 2 kids, and then 4 with the other. And that's just the first 3. So it'll be interesting to see how the older or the younger 3, what they think when they get older.
Well, the world, people statistically aren't having as many kids. And so the Flahertys are making up for that statistic clearly within our family. But no, it's true. You hear about China that just increased they're now able to have more children because they had cut back so much that it was affecting their overall population. And, you hear of different races and religions and these different things, and it plays into the culture and the world that we live in today. And there are certain cultures that are mass procreating, and it changes the overall dynamics of the world. And then there are others, and I think that here in the United States, families just aren't having as many children. And here's what I would say. First of all, you don't know what you don't know, and everybody has to do what they feel is right for them. And I certainly don't judge anybody whether they choose to have 1 child, no children, or 10 children. But I will say this. If you would have asked me when I was 22 years old and we got married, would we have 6 children? I would have been like, you are crazy. I grew up with 1 brother, and the idea of having 6 kids, first of all, the thought of that and the pressure financially of having that large of a family, and just, when you're younger, you can sometimes be a little bit more selfish, and you're thinking about like, gosh, I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do because I'm always going to be doing what the children want to do or what they need to do. So that's a lot of pressure, and it can feel overwhelming, but it just kind of naturally happened for us. The kids just kept on coming. I don't know what was causing it, but they just kept coming and coming and coming. But here's what I want to say is it's the most joyful and most rewarding element in the world to have a big family, to have, again, the luxury of having your children first and foremost, that to have good enough relationships with your children that they all still want to come around, right? Like they on a Friday night or a Saturday night could go anywhere. Like I know where I was on Friday, Saturday, and it certainly wasn't always at my mom and dad's house, but they are at our house. They hang out with us. Again, they're our best friends. And that Sunday dinner element of having 10, 12 kids and now 4 or 5 grandkids running around, to me, that's what happiness looks like. And it's hard to explain until you're just there. And I hear a lot of people also say, well, I'm going to have kids when I'm a little bit better off financially, when I can afford to have another kid. And the reality is there's never a great time.
No.
You just kind of figure it out. Like we didn't necessarily plan to have 6 children. We didn't really have plan on having.
Well, I don't know if you know this. I thought I told you this. When I was young, I wanted 8.
Well, see, there you go. Now I know where they came from.
When I was young, I wanted 8. But then after the first one, I was like, whoa, I don't know about that. Maybe we'll rethink that. I remember thinking, maybe we're done at 1, because 1 was a big transition. I mean, you have to change your whole lifestyle. Mm-hmm. You can't just pick up and go. You can't just be like, ooh, let's go get Starbucks. Wait, there's a baby. We have to load him in the car. Or, hey, let's go to a movie. Oh, wait, I need a babysitter who can babysit that I trust, holding my baby, all of those things. So, yeah, 1 is a big transition. But I always knew that I wanted a big family. But then I do think once you really do have it, it is like, wait, because 3 was hard too. 3 was really hard. 3, you're outnumbered. And we had 3 under 2.5 years. That was a lot. And we had started a business, and you were gone from, 5 in the morning till like 10 at night. I had to adjust my kids' schedules if they wanted to see their dad and try to load them up after nap time to come down to the gym for your lunch hours so they could see you. It was a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. And I think that what people don't realize is that you actually would be able to say this, but there is something called the law of sacrifice. And I think it is, I really truly believe in it, because as you sacrifice for this being, this cute little baby being, it's your time, your love, your energy, your finances. And men sacrifice differently than women, because we're actually sacrificing of our body and like how we feel, changing how our body looks. That's really hard and intimidating for women. I don't care, how old or thin or young or beautiful or whatever you are. When you see your body change, it can be really hard especially if you're used to being fit. So it is a sacrifice, but I think in the sacrifice is where the beauty of that bond and love grows. And that's where like the magic happens. And I think men look at it differently. They get to sacrifice in a different way with their time and energy and efforts going out and being the warrior to like secure the finances to be able to take care of their family. But that is no less of a great sacrifice. And I think as human beings, I feel like I look at other people and I feel bad that they haven't been able to experience that sacrifice, because I think in the sacrifice is where you grow. And I think that's where you get to understand empathy, and you get to not just about your family, but I think that's where you also grow as a human being to have more empathy and love for your fellow man, because it puts you in so many different circumstances that you couldn't even imagine, and just makes you think things differently. I feel like I've had a lot of people, a lot of women, all ages. We could be like at a restaurant and someone finds out that we have a lot of kids because we're with them and they see us. Or when I had babies and they were younger and we had 3 under 2, there's been so many situations where a young girl or, a waitress or, someone who's just married will come up to me and be like, oh, we really want to have a family, but we're not there yet financially, this or that or whatever. But the one thing that I would say is you will never, ever, ever look at your child and be like, ugh, I wish I didn't have you. If you're on the fence about having children, do it. You will never look back and think, oh, I wish I never had you. That's like never a thought. No, you will have hard times, but you never think that. But on the flip side, you could run out of time at some point from whatever, age. There is kind of a window of when you are best to have kids. And that is unfortunately a time limit. And you could look back and think, oh, you know what? I missed out. I wish I would have had kids. but you will never think that once you have kids, if that makes any sense. I was a little long-winded about
No, it's
that,
great.
but I have had a lot of people ask me, and there's never a perfect time. You're never going to have all the right finances or this or that. I feel like, honestly, a lot of our kids came when we had the biggest challenges financially. But I think that's what pushes you to grow and to take that next step and figure it out on what you need to do. You would be able to speak more eloquently about that, but I feel like we've always just figured it out.
Well, you're right. You just figure it out. It all seems to work out. And you're right. The children often came at some of our most challenging times, but they also ended up becoming our greatest blessings in life. Something interesting happened yesterday, and maybe the team can throw this video up or this picture up as we're talking about it. But Summer sends me this picture. She's shopping for clothes for our son, who's turning from a teenager into a man all of a sudden in the last few months, and he's just growing up. So he needed a whole new wardrobe. So Summer's shopping for him yesterday, and she pulls in next to this car. You want to tell him a little bit about this picture that you sent me?
I was going to bring that up when I was talking about the kids. So there was this one time, I say one time because there was many financially challenging times throughout our life. But one time we literally had both our cars repoed because we had lost everything. We lost our business. That's a whole nother story. And we didn't have a car. So I was like, for a short time, we were like, what are we going to do? Obviously, financially, that's what got us to that point. So we couldn't afford to go get a car. And my dad was coming by and taking the kids to school if they were like late. I'm like, no one can be late. We have to get on the bus. You know, there's no one to pick you up if you're not on that bus. But we ended up being able to figure out how to rent a car. And we couldn't even afford to rent a minivan. We had 4 kids and we could only afford to rent this neon green. And it wasn't even like a bright neon green. It was kind of like a muted lime green VW Beetle. Okay. Not even a Bug, like a Beetle. It was so ugly. And there was 3 seats in the back and we had 4 kids. Thankfully, our youngest was able to not have to be in a car seat. And we had to strap them and kind of creatively strap 2 of them in one. And, but yeah, so fast forward, we pull in to go shopping. Cayman and I, our 14-year-old and I pull in and I happen to pull into the same exact car. Like, obviously. She
pulls in right next, she's in her G-wagon. And she pulls in right next to that same car.
I was going to get to
that.
Okay.
I'm stealing the story.
No, I pull in to this, right next to this, because like it's busy. A lot of people are out shopping. Right next to this green, same color green, Beetle. And it looked old. So it probably was the same year that we had to rent ours. But anyways, I get out of the car, I turn around, and Cayman is the one who says, oh my gosh, Mom, isn't that the car? I go, yeah, it is. And, you know, he doesn't remember. He wasn't born. So, but he's heard the story. So he goes, you have to take a picture and send it to Dad. And I was like, oh my gosh. He goes, yeah, you have to, because look what you're driving now. And I'm going to get emotional a little bit about it because, like, it's not about the thing, but like I have my beautiful, amazing, brand new white G-wagon that says G-wagon, the cute little blingy license plate next to this crappy old green VW Bug. And the contrast was just so amazing. And I just felt like it was such a good life lesson for like where you have no idea where your journey is going to take you and how you just have to get through that with faith and like where it can lead you, you know? But yeah, so I have a picture and I snapped it and I sent it to Travis and I was going to send it in the group, the family chat, but that said from 0 to hero. And I don't mean to like mean that if you have that now that you're 0, I just meant like when we were in that situation, that's what we felt like. We felt like we were at rock bottom 0 and we were literally renting by the month this crappy. And by the way, I don't want to, you know, mess with anybody, but it just wasn't the right car for us. We had 4 kids, you know? Anyways, so it was pretty cool.
Sometimes you go through those challenges in life that end up pushing you down a different path to exactly where you're supposed to be. And she didn't even have to say anything. I got the picture and I just smiled and I knew right away what it meant. So it was a beautiful thing.
Travis sent me a text this morning. And he said, oh, honey, good pick.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I don't know if we can say that or not, but I just follow a couple people on. I don't purport to be the, you know, brightest and best at crypto, but I do like to follow along. That is our business. And I like to like do my homework. And I had found like had heard people talking about this one in particular crypto coin, right?
Ironically.
And it actually, ironically, was WAR, war. And this is like, Travis has got so sick of me telling him about this and showing him all these video things to back up why I thought it was a good pick, that he's like, fine, we'll throw some money at it, probably just to shut me up. But anyways, he sent me this picture this morning and he's like, ooh, honey, good pick.
So it was up from the time that we bought it, and we didn't put a ton of money into it, but a few $1,000s into it, but it was up, $5,000 or $6,000 over the course of the last couple of weeks, and today it was up significantly again. Western Asset Reserve, and it's tied back into kind of the gold and all these different tangible commodities, and it's still considered a meme coin, and it's still more on the speculative side.
This is not financial advice.
This is not financial advice, but it's we believe, I think smart money diversifies, and you have a lot of different projects that are out there, and I speak a lot about infrastructure plays. I speak a lot about utility. I speak a lot about use, right? The true value doesn't come from, excitement per se. It comes from functionality. It comes from use. All of these principles that you've heard me talk about before. But I also take a small percentage and put them into, higher risk, higher reward type of opportunities. And in this case, Summer brought this to me, and she does do, to Summer's credit, I have a very short attention span. I know that I do. And so I'm one of those guys that, I might watch the first 30 seconds of a video. Summer's always sending me, watch this, watch this, watch this. And I have a hard time getting through all these different videos. So I'll watch a little bit of this, a little bit of that. If it really grabs me, then I'll tune in. But Summer is a deep diver. In fact, I'll share something. When Summer sits next to me and I'm on my phone, she always is like, what's that? Stop. We'll go back. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, because I just want to go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And Summer is like one of those really wants to explore and deep dive everything. And so to her credit, she found this particular project and one other one. And we decided to throw a little bit of money into it, and it paid off. So I texted her this morning and I said, hey, honey, this was a great pick. Good job. And
well, the reason why also I was so excited is because I know recently a lot of crypto has kind of tanked. I don't know where it's at today. I'm not one person that checks it daily because I'm in it for the long haul. But how are you feeling like crypto is doing since the war and all of that?
We had a nice rebound today. We saw a little bit of a spike or a peak on some of the coins that have been tanking for quite some time. My philosophy is this: everything is cyclical. I think that the war itself does have an impact. I think everybody's watching what's happening to oil. Anytime that oil prices go up, it hurts everybody's pocketbook. It sometimes forces people to sell, to liquidate, to be able to get extra cash flow, to be able to survive. And so I do think there's that element. But, I think that there's also the cycle of cryptocurrency. And a lot of people are saying that it doesn't apply, and I don't necessarily buy into that. If you look at these cycles, Bitcoin is obviously the leading indicator for cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin goes up. Typically, every time there's a new halving event, it hits an all-time high. Then we go a year, 2 years in, and then it starts to soften a little bit. People start to take profits, and it starts to come down. Everybody starts to panic. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt sets in, causes more panic selling. And the interesting thing that's happening right now is I believe that the media and the forces that are behind the media are forcing what I would call a squeeze. They're trying to create enough fear out there that the smaller wallet holders give up their cryptocurrency. They sell their Bitcoin. Something interesting happened this week. Bitcoin, we minted 20 million tokens now of Bitcoin has been minted. There's only 21 million total supply. Wow. So the 20 millionth Bitcoin was minted. Now, it'll take the next 90 years approximately to mint that last 1 million because of that halving schedule. And so we're 2 years into the halving, and usually, historically speaking, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. Is as we start approaching that next halving event, you start seeing things inch up again. And right now, I think Bitcoin's sitting in the $70,000, $73,000 range. We've reclaimed 70. It's been pretty solid at 70 at this point. And I believe that we'll continue to see over the course of the coming months in 2026, we're going to see some strong rallies this year as we approach that next halving as we move forward. So overall, I think that the crypto sentiment has moved from extreme fear to fear at this point. But the interesting thing that's happening is while all these small wallet holders are fearful, largely because of what's going on in the world, I mean, There's every day you turn on the media and they're fear mongering about World War III. They're fear mongering about, watch out for this or that, or gas is going to go to the roof and the world is going to collapse and California is going to be targeted by Iran. And I mean, they bait you so much out there in the media today. And I'm not saying that there aren't legitimate concerns. I mean, obviously there's a war that's going on. We have to take these things very seriously. But I think that there's some deliberate, intentional manipulation that is happening because these banks and these institutions want to buy up your Bitcoin. They're all fighting for the 450 Bitcoin that are being minted every single day right now. And let's face it, there's more than 21 million millionaires in the world. And if every one of them wanted to go buy even one Bitcoin, there's not enough. And so I watch Bitcoin as kind of an indicator, and it usually sets the stage for a lot of the other altcoins to follow suit. Even Ethereum is rebounding again right now. Personally, I think Ethereum is a great buy in the $2,000 to $2,100 range. You have to remember, it hit a new all-time high in the fall of about $4,900 a coin. So I think there's a lot of really good buys that are out there. XRP's in the $1.50 range right now. There could be some really good arguments about how we're seeing that be integrated into the overall financial system. My concern has always been the circulating supply of XRP, so there's got to be a lot of demand to move that particular coin, but I am a holder of XRP.
Yeah, but it does go back to utility, so it just goes back to like how many people in the world are going to end up using that if the rumors are true that it's going to be the standard for the global, use of sending money back and forth. Because you think globally that, I don't know, you're right, there is a lot of supply. I'm actually on the XRP bandwagon. Personally, Travis and I have a little bit of difference. I am not ever selling XRP. So I'm not letting you ever sell XRP.
It's not
either.
that I'm not a fan of XRP. I mean, we are holders of XRP.
Yes, we are.
My challenge with XRP is I think it's going to take quite a bit of time. It's one of those longer term holds. Like you said, it's not something I'll ever sell. But I do see XRP being integrated into all facets of the financial system. And so my challenge again is the billions of circulating supply. And people have been holding on to it for so long that anytime that we do start to see a little bit of a rally, people start selling because they have been holding it for so long. So I just think it's more of a.
But if this is a thing that has changed though, if institutions are now going to be now in on it, I think there is. This is my conspiracy theory. I also agree with you. I think there is being a squeeze intentionally. However that happens, I don't know, but I think it's interesting that this is happening right before the banks get in. Because you think all the institutions that are owned by all the bigwigs and, whatever, the global elites, you think they want to buy it at the highest price? No, they want their best return. So I personally think that we're getting put on the squeeze so that they can have it at the price that they're willing and able to buy it at, so they can buy it up a lot. So as far as XRP goes, I don't know. I'm really interested to see how it turns out, but I'm a believer.
Well, and again, we're not giving financial advice.
No.
We're not financial advisors. That's my disclaimer. We're talking a little bit about just our belief and our opinions and what we do. And I think right now, crypto, this is my overall sentiment. For those of you that are watching and saying, hey, I'm looking for a tip or, what would you suggest? My thought process is right now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, if you have the ability to be able to buy and hold for a longer period of time. And when I say a longer period of time, you're not looking to get rich quick in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 1 year. You're not trading. If you have the ability to be able to go and buy right now, I think there are some excellent buys that are out there. As long as it's not something that you're going to need that money in the short term. And that's always been our challenge in the past. As entrepreneurs and in full transparency, there are times where we've bought, but then we've been forced to sell because we needed the money. And it drives me crazy that we were forced to sell because some of those coins, had we just held on to them, life would have been quite a bit different later on. And so if you're in a position right now where you have some extra cash flow, look at it this way. Bitcoin is up 863% in the last 5 years. The dollar is up 238% in the last 5 years. The dollar is down 21% in the last 5 years. If that is not enough to tell you that diversification is necessary, that the world is changing, if we fail to adapt, if we fail to innovate, we're going to continue to see people struggling and suffering. This idea that you just got to work and save so that one day you can retire with a little bit of money in the bank, it's pretty hard to outsave inflation. And cryptocurrency is now playing a critical role in hedging the dollar and giving people additional options. I still think that, Bitcoin's got fantastic growth opportunity in front of it. I think that there are some other great projects that are out there. I personally think that the future and the big plays are going to be in infrastructure when it comes to tokenizing real world assets. And this is obviously a big plug. You guys know we are the original founders of Trusted Smart Chain, and Trusted Smart Chain is a layer 1 blockchain that focuses on a regulatory and compliant pathway forward for tokenizing real world assets. And that is, in my opinion, the future over the next 5 to 10 years in cryptocurrency. These meme coins are fading. I'm not saying that there aren't some meme coins that have good visions and ideas of what potentially their utility will be in the future. But overall, the future belongs to the regulatory and compliant projects. And that comes back to tokenizing real world assets. It's the biggest conversation in the world of finance and banking right now. I think there's some great opportunities there.
So, babe, on your 2026 bingo card, in terms of social media, everybody talks about that. Did you have like all of the things that have happened in the state of the world? Did you have any of those on your bingo card, like Iran or Mexico?
Well, you think about it. I mean, you've got Venezuela, then you have the cartels in Mexico. Now you have Iran. And I know there's a lot of mixed opinions about whether or not the U.S. should be getting involved in these type of conflicts. But I'm a big advocate. Number one, first and foremost, I support our troops, and I pray for every single soldier that is putting themselves in harm's way, any first responder. I pray for the Border Patrol that protects our countries. And I am a big advocate for stronger borders and protecting our country. And I think that everything that's going on in the world right now is even more of a reason why we have to have strong borders. I'm all for immigration, but sign the guest book on the way in. That's just my philosophy. I know some of you won't agree with that, but I didn't have all this on my bingo card, and I know there's a lot of people that are out there that are frustrated or saying, Trump promised that he wouldn't enter us into any new wars, and that's a very sensitive topic, and I know as soon as I say the T word, there's going to be some people that are coming at us, but here's what I'm going to say. The U.S. has always played a role in keeping peace, being the peacekeeper worldwide. And anytime that you have a growing threat, and let's face it, Iran is a growing threat. Anytime that you have a country that's out there that's saying and chanting death to America, and they've killed tens of thousands of people in their regime over the years, and you look at those things, and you just cannot allow that type of regime to be able to gain control over nuclear weapons that have the ability to be able to threaten the entire world.
Agreed.
And so Trump, while he did say that we would try not to enter into any new wars, also made a promise that he would not allow Iran to be able to gain power, nuclear power. And so he's honoring that promise. And I know that some people are not going to agree with our position in the war or even war itself. War is messy, and people lose lives, and it's sad. And I don't want to go as far as to say it's necessary, but it is and it always has been part of life. And at the end of the day, I am an advocate for keeping peace, and if that means that we have to take out a tyrant and a regime that is threatening and killing their own people, murdering innocent women and children, and ultimately, chanting death to America, then I support President Trump. I support our troops, and like I said, I pray for any one of those soldiers and heroes that are out there that are putting themselves in harm's way, and I always will.
Well, the one thing I know is the older I get and the more experience I have being a parent, being a grandparent, being a sister, mother, daughter, like in all the circles of influence that I have lived, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And I just think that we are pretty politically active in our communities, but I'm willing to bet there's a lot of things that we don't know. And I think that if we were in those positions of knowing, like the president, and let's face it, it's not just the president. He has a whole staff of people that have to know their job, and generals and advisors. It's not just President Trump. He has a whole bunch of knowing of things that I don't know. And I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of things that we just don't know and we're not aware of. So I'm just trusting that with all of the people that are paid to know, and that is their job, that is their thing, that we're doing the right thing. I feel like we are doing the right thing, and I have to have faith to know that there's a lot of things I don't know, because I can just think of the things I don't know in my only daily life. I think everybody just needs to take that perspective. And the other thing is, I feel like automatically when people say, oh, well, he said he promised, the first thing that comes to my mind is legend at bedtime. Before he starts to get ready for bed, before he does his whole whatever, he'll sit there and he'll try to pigeonhole me in. Mom, can I watch Living Scriptures before I go to bed? And he tries to get me to tell him an answer. And I'm like, well, that depends. It's, 8:45. If you brush your teeth, do this, this, and this, and you do it on time, then maybe I'll consider it. But you have to go to bed and you have to get up in the morning. So I don't want to say yes. I don't want to promise anything, because there's a whole bunch of other things that have to happen. And in that situation, then yes, you can. But it does depend on legend. If he messes around, if he goes back in the pantry, eats something, if he kind of dawdles, diddle-dallies,
which he always does.
Whatever, which he always does. And then he's like 9:15 and I already said, oh yeah, you can. Then he'll say, well, you said, Mom. And I was like, well, yes, but you didn't do the things you were supposed to do for me to give you that yes. And now you're going to say I'm lying about it, or, oh, I said, and I went back on my word. That's not fair. And so whenever people throw that out, like, oh, he promised, I think about the things that I don't know, and I'm not paid to know, where he has access to all those things and knowledge. And then I think about, well, where did they do this, and that to not do? You know what I mean? Did they earn that reward of being able to? They didn't. And so that also falls into the category of a lot of things that I don't know. So whenever people want to be like, oh, well, he said, I kind of think of my kid trying to get me to make a promise before they do the things that they're supposed to do. And then they want to hold me accountable, but yet they weren't accountable for the things that they were supposed to do. So that's kind of my little lesson on like how to judge like a government on what they will or won't do, or the president. I think of that. And maybe more people need to have kids so they understand that, being put in that predicament.
Well, and to your point, everybody today, fueled by social media, believes that they have the information to be more information than our president, more information than, these people that are making these decisions that ultimately impact our entire world. And so, at the end of the day, what I will say is that I support peace, and sometimes that requires
a consequence.
And sometimes it requires war and death, which is messy. But at the end of the day, if we can take out some really bad people that ultimately is going to save the lives of hundreds of thousands and potentially millions around the world, because it keeps us from moving into a world war, then I'm all for it, and I support our Trumps 100%. So what do you guys think? Are you for the war? Are you against the war? We would love to see it in the comments. We respect everybody's opinions. And listen, if you enjoy content like this,
I was going to say something real quick.
Go ahead.
Yes, and that is to kind of wrap it up on a positive note. Just because we did talk a lot about like having kids, is it kind of crazy to have a big family in today's age? I mean, there is a lot of craziness going on. Like you said, the bingo card of, Mexico cartels and war in Iran. And it can be a very fearful, place going online. It's like you're going to get what you look for. And I think that bottom line, you just have to pick, are you going to be operating in fear or faith? It's the opposite extremes. And if you're operating in fear, you're not giving any room for you to have faith. And again, it kind of fits in the same tone of like having kids, like should I, shouldn't I? And if you want to have kids, how many? But you have to have faith to be able to take that step forward, whether it's finances or having kids or whatever. Operating in faith is always going to get you to the end goal point where you're going to be the happiest. Operating in fear is going to just keep you negative and not feeling good and depressed. So I just say, to end on a positive note, with all the other stuff going on and all the things that we talked about, I think that operating in faith is always the right answer. And that if you ever make decisions out of fear, it's always going to be the wrong answer. So, check yourself. If you're making decisions based on fear, that probably isn't the right answer. And it's probably not going to take you to that higher level of living and that higher being able to accomplish all your goals. So always choose faith, operate in faith, and make your choices in faith.
Faith is the most powerful force on earth. So listen, if you enjoy this type of content, if you enjoy family dynamics and the culture of what it's like to raise a big family, if you enjoy crypto talk and you enjoy just, healthy discussion about what's going on in the world, click the follow button. We'd love to have you. We'd love to hear your comments. We do read every one of the comments, and we appreciate you guys following along. We'll see you next time.